Hey everybody, it's Kneecap here, and in this video I'm going to be talking about why World of Warcraft PvP is just kind of bad. And I am going to be talking about this from like a casual player perspective, and I'll get into why that's an important thing. Now, the high-end community is also a little bit peeved with PvP right now because of balancing issues, which are real issues and another complaint entirely. But I'm going to be talking more about the health of the game, the health of World of Warcraft, the health of World of Warcraft PvP, which is right now extremely low. To go about this, because I'm not a fully casual player myself, I don't have a lot of the same issues that a casual player might run into. I decided to ask casual players and get their responses from this. And I wanted to know, their visceral reaction. The first thing that they thought of when I said, "Why don't you like WoW PvP?" I asked, you could give me a nuanced take as well, but give me your visceral reaction. And overwhelmingly, when asking that question, the number one thing that people said to me was that they did not like, essentially, the barrier to entry. And by this, I mean the gearing process to even just do PvP. Now, World of Warcraft has always been about gear. In some ways, it should be. I think in PvE, for example, I think it's really nice progression to get gear from either the different raid difficulties, to get it from dungeons, and then better gear from raids. And it's been a different process throughout the history of the game, but it's always like you do this content, so then you can do that content, so then you can do that content. And I think that's kind of nice in PvE. It's more of a team-based thing where you're working together and doing it. You're planning out, when you're going to do it. Whereas PvP, especially in other games, it's more of a I'm just going to log on and do some PvP and kind of just chill out and have fun, and for an hour or whatever, right? And so, in that way, it doesn't really lend itself to having to gear up a character, especially when you compare it to every other game. When I say PvP, I literally just mean player versus player. So this means first-person shooters. This means League of Legends. This means Hearthstone Battlegrounds, which is a PvP form of PvP that I really enjoy. And so I would rather do any of those things than WoW PvP. In fact, when I feel an itch to play PvP, I log off World of Warcraft and go do something else, and which is not good. And so what these casual players experience that even more because they are casual. They don't have a lot of gear, a lot of resources and stuff like that. They came back to experience the story, maybe do the LFR, and they would like to do some PvP and try out their new abilities. But they don't really want to go through the gearing process to do so, and grind all that honor and all that kind of stuff to do it. So basically, the solution here is pretty simple, and that would just be to normalize item level in rated PvP, especially. We have this a little bit in solo shuffle, so they have a item level floor that players get scaled up to. I would like to see item level completely equalized in rated PvP. This could be contentious among some people, of course, because while I worked hard on my gear, I think you should get all kinds of cosmetics. You should get cooler mounts for being the best at PvP than what they currently get. Titles, obviously, all kinds of cool stuff that they could get. Toys that are like PvP oriented toys for like World PvP. There's all kinds of stuff you could do to reward the high end PvP community more than they already are. While they do sacrifice their gear not mattering as much in the content that they are doing. I think it's overall better for the game because you're going to have more people playing it and more people doing the content. At some point, otherwise, what eventually it'll be at the current curve is all that will be left is, the thousand or a few thousand or whatever players that are at the high end, and then their alts. That's all that's going to be left. So you need some casual players. You need fresh blood. And you're not going to get that in today's world by making casual players grind out gear at all to do PvP. And then even once they get the gear, their gear is going to be worse than a lot of other people's as well. So I think we have to equalize item level in rated PvP. If you want to be able to maybe change your stats around and stuff like that by choosing different pieces, I think that would be fine. And maybe you can only maybe you can still get PvP pieces, and you can choose the stats that are on them. But everyone else's item level is the same, so therefore, everyone's stamina, everyone's health is roughly the same, stuff like that. I think that would be very beneficial to the game in general. So the number two thing that people mention to me about why they don't like WoW PvP is like the need for knowledge, the amount of knowledge that you need, slash like the learning slash like the curve to getting into the game, is so steep because of that knowledge. You almost need to import a decade of knowledge in immediately into somebody to be able to compete in rated PvP. So let's say the person did grind their battlegrounds, their honor. They have their honor gear on now. They want to go into PvP. Let's pretend like they're not facing people with much better gear than them, even though they have the base gear. We'll just pretend there. And now they're just facing people who potentially, especially like we said, this is a lot of the people that are left in WoW PvP are high end players, or people that have just stuck with it over the years, and so they know how all their class works. They know how your class works. They know how every class works. Same with me. I've played WoW long enough that I know how every class works, and you know how everyone's spell toolkit works and every spec and everything like that. So I understand knowing that stuff, but I also understand from my own friends and stuff that when they come back that they don't know all that stuff. They don't know even all their own spells in their spell book. And normally you gain that knowledge the way I gain that knowledge, the way most people gain that knowledge is over time. So as I did PvP back in the day, I would learn, oh, Druid has this spell and that spell and that spell, even though I don't play a Druid. Oh, this is what a hunter's doing. This is what a hunter's trying to do. This is how this setup works. So I need to do this to counter it. And you would learn those things, and you slowly learn them over time by playing people at your skill level. Back in the day, believe it or not, when you were at 1200 arena rating, you were probably a 1200 player, and you were facing people who were also a 1200 skill level player. It wasn't like this thing where you're just constantly grinding against other skilled players, and it's like skill player versus skill player. And if you get lucky enough as a skilled player to face like a new player or a returning player or whatever, you just stomp them and you're like, yes, I got a free win. But imagine how the person on the other side of that feels. Because they're at like 1,000 rating or something, and they're expecting to face other people at 1,000 rating, and that doesn't end up being the case many times. So you generally would gain that knowledge over time. But now, if you want to compete, if you want to log on and just play, you need to somehow import a decade of knowledge into your head, and that's very difficult to do. So I think the way this works is because you can't just make up for not having the knowledge, right? I think what has to happen is you have to have that returning player base. You have to have that returning casual players so they can play against each other and learn naturally, and not expect them to go on Wowhead and read every skill and every ability, or watch a guide on every spec and learn what every spec is doing. I don't think that's very reasonable. So basically, let's say we take the first thing and it actually works. We remove barrier to entry. People are logging on WoW to do PvP just for fun because they can. Their item levels are equalized. Now we have more players. Now there's actual players that are legit 1,000 rating. They're facing against other players who are legit 1,000 rating, and those people are learning naturally. They're teaching each other essentially how the different classes work without having to worry about it. And, you know, this could potentially work. I'm not saying it will work. It could be way too far gone to work. But these two things could be solved. And it does start by getting more players to play it, which is removing barrier of entry in any case. And in this case, at least for the players I talk to, happens to be gear. So, you know, because some people could say the knowledge is the barrier to entry. But in my opinion, the gear is, in fact, the barrier to entry. Now, if you get past all of this stuff, then you get to a point where I'm at, that I've been at since probably Cataclysm, when I really started to see this start to shift to this more super heavy crowd control. Now, in my opinion, it is not fun to play a game where you don't get to play your character. I could not imagine being crowd control in Fortnite or Halo or Overwatch or whatever for 20 seconds. I wouldn't play the game. In League of Legends, whatever. Some of these games do have crowd control, things that can disorient or stop your character from moving, but you could not have it happen for 20 seconds. I respect the AWC players, the top end players who do these amazing setups, have this amazing skill and practice. I respect it, I appreciate it, but it cannot be in the game. Not at that level. Something needs to change as far as diminishing returns goes. The base amount of time that you can be crowd controlled needs to go down. All of these things combined, even, but you should not lose complete control of your character for that long of time. You should not lose an entire offensive cooldown or defensive cooldown, whatever. You should not lose an entire cooldown because you're just crowd controlled the entire time. It's not fun to play. Again, for me, that's where I'm at. That's the point where I got to that point. And I'm like, yep, I'm not dealing with this. I'm not going to find certain classes and specs to play with that can kind of counter it. I'm not going to play one of those specs just so I can do it to other people. I'm just not going to deal with it. I don't want to. I'm going to log off and play something else. It's not fun to deal with. And so I think that's another thing that stops people, that even if they do all this crap, and there's other things that aren't fun about it too, but the number one not fun thing for me is just not getting to be able to play my character. It's absolutely terrible. I absolutely cannot stand it. And there's other issues. So especially I play Rep Paladin now. So being crowd controlled through your entire Avenging Wrath is absolutely terrible feeling. And on top of it, having the priests are so common, warriors are so common, not even having like a defensive cooldown because your bubble can just be removed instantly, is not a good feeling either, just as from me on my class specifically, but just in general, no matter what you're playing, to be crowd controlled all the time is just not fun. It's not good gameplay. It's not good game design. And I think the game would be better the old way, because, a lot of people who are maybe more high end, look down on people who are against crowd control. And to well, if you don't have crowd control, it's just people beating on each other. That's not really the case. Back in the day, it used to be about kiting and line of sighting and using the environment. And of course, you still use pillars now and stuff like that. Don't get me wrong. That's still a huge part of the game. But it was more important. But now it's more like hiding to get your cooldowns back so you can do another go. Before, it was literally okay, I need to root this guy because he's killing me and get to the other side of the map and try to eat or drink or whatever and hide behind a pillar and before they get back to me. I remember one time I was dueling a monk for I don't even know how long. We were just going back and forth, and the monk would port away and heal himself up, and he'd come back and we'd fight again, and he'd port away from me and I couldn't get to him, and that was and it was a very even match, and either of us could have won. I got him to 1%. I think he ended up beating me in this particular instance, but I got him to 2% health. He would almost kill me, and I would change it up, but I would kind of run away, and he'd be oh, I'm not going to follow him because then I can't port away. And it was this cool back and forth battle, and it wasn't about crowd control. Now this was we had each killed a person, so it was only 1 versus 1 left. So it is a different dynamic for sure. But that's also how the game was, even in with multiple players in the game. It was more about that than keeping something crowd controlled for 20 seconds. That wasn't the main focus of the game. Maybe at the high end it was, but not at the medium or nearing the high end. It wasn't like that. So I would like to see the game go back to that because it's just more fun to play. And this could again just be an issue of the fact that there aren't other people of the actual skill level in those brackets. At the 1800 level, if there was actually 1800 level people that were maybe learning those CC things instead of flooded with alts of gladiators in that ranking who already know how to do it, that could solve the problem too, potentially, right? Because again, I'm not trying to be gladiator. These casual players are not trying to be gladiator. We're just trying to log in and have some fun. We just want to have fun playing PvP, because that's why a lot of people do PvP. That's why I play Battlegrounds. That's why I play Fortnite. That's why I play Overwatch. I play to log in and just have some fun, then I log out. And it's that simple. So I believe that all of these things contribute to why World of Warcraft PvP is bad. I think we should listen to what the casual players say, because we need them to come back to the game in some capacity just to even have fun. They don't have to be full-time subscribers to save WoW and bring it back to its glory. I'm not delusional in that sense. I just mean it'd be cool if they could just log in and have a little bit of fun and log off, and in the same way that they do other games. Again, that they aren't necessarily full-time players of. They just want to log in and have fun, and that's it. So yeah, that's it for this one, guys. I know some people might disagree. Hopefully enough people agree to where we can make some of these things happen in the game. I think we start with the item level optimization and we go from there, or not optimization, but the item level syncing essentially, and go from there. But as always, please do subscribe to the channel because that helps me out so much. And other than that, everybody, have a good one.